Coming up on BCN today, the Bank of Canada set to announce its first interest rate decision since the federal election. Plus, Halloween is just around the corner. We have tips on how to keep your kids safe. And the wildfires continue to rage in both Southern and Northern California. We have an update from our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari.
Your Canada. Your Southern Alberta. Your stories. From our studios in the heart of Lethbridge, it's BCN Today with Jeanette Rocher.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. The Bank of Canada is holding its key interest rate at 1.75%. Today's announcement is the first policy decision from the central bank since last week's federal election, which gave the Liberals a minority government. The U.S. Federal Reserve is also set to make a rate decision today, the first time since 2000 that it will announce its setting on the same day as Canada's central bank. If the Federal Reserve cuts its borrowing rate, it will leave Canada with the highest rate in the advanced world. The Alberta government is seeking wage rollbacks as binding arbitration is set to resume with unions that represent more than 180,000 public sector workers. Finance Minister Travis Taves says the UCP government will ask arbitrators to impose an average of 2% wage cut in 30 upcoming public sector wage cases, but in some cases it will ask for reductions as high as 5%. The workers affected include nurses, teachers, social workers, hospital support staff, prison guards, conservation officers, toxicologists, restaurant inspectors, therapists, and sheriffs. The Alberta Union of Provincial Employees, which is the largest public sector union, is calling the move a direct attack on the livelihoods of frontline workers and their families. Meanwhile, the Canadian Union of Public Employees is raising concerns about staffing levels. They represent employees at a Calgary assisted living home where a worker was fatally stabbed. Deborah Onwu, a caseworker at the Woods Homes facility, died of her injuries on Friday. Lou Arab with QP says Onwu was dealing with a person with complex mental health needs and a history of violence, and that she was dealing with him alone, even though the rules required at least a 2-to-1 staff ratio. Brandon Newman, who is 18, has been charged with second-degree murder in that case. A man accused of robbing and assaulting a senior citizen last December is heading to trial. 27-year-old Riley Mistaken Chief of Brockett will go to court on April 27th for sexual assault with a weapon, choking, robbery, and break and enter. Cardston RCMP reported last year they charged a man who assaulted an elderly woman in her Cardston home on December 17th. The woman was taken to hospital and treated for her injuries. Her bank cards were then used many times, and police were able to identify a suspect from surveillance video. Understanding hate crimes and hate incidents is the goal of the Alberta Hate Crimes Committee. They held a presentation on the topic last night in partnership with several organizations in the city of Lethbridge, including police, Lethbridge Interfaith Network, and John Humphrey Center for Peace and Human Rights. Also in attendance were members of the community who were concerned about the overall increase in crime that has plagued the city recently. If you haven't noticed already, the Poppy campaign has kicked off. According to Glenn Miller, spokesperson for the Lethbridge Legion, the Poppy campaign begins every year on the last Friday of October, with the Governor General receiving their Poppy first, then the Lieutenant Governor, and so on, trickling right down to the general public. It's followed by Tag Day, where veterans around the country tag people with poppies.
This year, the Poppy campaign has just started, with Tag Day recently completed. And so now this is the season, not just on Remembrance Day, but between now and Remembrance Day, we would encourage to see a lot of red poppies on all Canadians of all ages, just to recognize the act of remembrance and what we're leading up to on Remembrance Day. Poppies are always free, and we don't sell them, but we kindly take the donations, and those donations go to help veterans and their families.
You can pick up a poppy at most local businesses or the Legion, and they're always free, but just remember, to leave a donation. I obviously lost mine this morning in the parking lot. And with the Poppy campaign also comes the start of the National Student Poster and Literary Contest.
It's a national contest that is run by the Royal Canadian Legion, and the deadline is November 30th. And the categories are color, black and white posters, essays, or a poem. And it's broken down by different age groups. Individual branches take the local entries from students, judge them, and then those winners from the branch level gets elevated to the provincial level for consideration. And the very national winner is flown on behalf of the Legion to attend the Remembrance Day activity in Ottawa.
Students from Lethbridge have been recognized in the past for their work provincially and nationally in this contest, including Sam Lowen, a student from LCI who won the National Poster Contest in 2009. With Halloween coming up on Thursday, the youngsters will be going door to door looking for candy. Some families, however, have decided to ditch the traditional way of collecting sweets. Ainsley O'Reilly explains why some parents are doing things a little differently this year.
Lethbridge police say that they've been monitoring social media, and people are wondering if there's going to be more boots on the ground Halloween night. Officers say there won't be, and residents need to remember that LPS is a part of the community too.
We are going out. We are in our community. We don't go out dressed as police officers. We're the same as any other civilian when we're out there and we're doing it. So trust us, we want a community to be safe too, so that us and our families can also enjoy it.
If you don't feel safe going door to door, LPS suggested some alternatives.
Stay to neighborhoods and go to houses that you know, family, friends. Stay to the people that you know and you trust.
Some communities are planning to boycott traditional trick-or-treating, one being Colehurst and a Northside community in Lethbridge. They've teamed up with Bikers Building Bridges.
They've been having a lot of trouble with the crime rate there and needle debris, just with concerns in the community with the population growing. So we wanted to be able to provide a safe place that's been checked for any debris or anybody that shouldn't be there for all their kids to go and just kind of enjoy Halloween how it should be enjoyed.
The area is planning on decorating vehicles and handing out candy in the parking lot of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
A lot of fun for the kids to have, and the parents can kind of meet their neighbors. It's almost like a little mini block party for the day for them to meet their neighbors and know the neighborhood.
Registration isn't required, but 200 kids have already signed up. If you want to hand out candy, Bikers Building Bridges says that they could use your help. Just go to bikersbuildingbridges.com. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
Thank you, Ainsley. This Halloween, pet owners are sparing no expense when it comes to their fur babies costumes. On average, North Americans will spend $490 million on pet costumes, more than double what owners spent 10 years ago. And social media is fueling the trend. Some are tuning to sites for inspiration, while others are hoping to show off their pets online. BCN's Loris Alexander went to a local pet store to discover some of this year's best Halloween looks for your four-legged friends.
What is your dog dressing up for Halloween as this year?
Superman.
And are you going to take him trick-or-treating with you?
Yeah.
Are you going to share your candy with your dog? Or is he going to have his own?
He has a really sensitive stomach.
A lot of superhero costumes, which is, Marvel Universe is always poppin', so that was a lot of fun. And then we also, we normally had hot dogs in the previous years, now we have french fries and burgers and just a lot of food-oriented stuff, because who doesn't want to dress their dog up in a hot dog costume?
Superhero costumes are the fastest growing trend. And then there's also cat costumes for those wanting to dress their felines, like the store cat dressed as Thor.
Our store cat in particular, he's definitely tried on all the costumes by force, but a lot of people dressing up their cats this year, which has been different from previous years.
Showth has advice for pet parents looking to include their fur babies in the festivities.
If your dog doesn't like to be dressed up, don't dress your dog up. Don't stress them out for no reason, even though it's fun for us. Also, if you're taking your dog trick-or-treating, it gets dark out really quickly, so make sure they have a lighting on them or bring a flashlight with you.
This store went even further, hosting a Halloween-themed photo shoot last week, with proceeds going to a local charity.
We had a pet photo shoot. It was all proceeds go to a Better Chance Animal Rescue and Prairie Pitbull. It was just 10-minute sessions, $10 donation. We had some costumes provided, and we had a nice pumpkin backdrop, and it was a lot of fun.
For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
Thank you, Loris. The new Alberta budget has cut funding for environmental monitoring and managing greenhouse gas emissions. Critics say it will weaken Alberta's ability to track pollution. The budget says the Science and Monitoring Office will have its funding cut by around 5%. The Emissions Management Office will receive a 20% cut by the year 2023. 98 new MPs are learning how to manage their budgets, get their parking passes, and try to find some work-life balance. The House of Commons is providing training for rookie MPs. Principal Clerk Jeffrey LeBlanc says learning how to hire staffers is usually the #1 concern of new MPs.
The program begins with the sort of things you would do with any people joining an organization for the first time. So the first day they get here, they have to get an ID card, they have to get a parking pass, they have to fill out some forms, they have to get a smartphone. And after that, we offer what our first group session is sort of an orientation to the Hill. So we explain to them physically what are the different buildings that are part of the parliamentary precinct. We'll explain what are the different services that are offered by the House of Commons, the different partners like the Library of Parliament who are there to assist them in their work. The second day of their orientation program is very much dedicated to their role in running their office. That's usually the first priority of a new member of Parliament. They want to get staff, they want to get into their office and begin working. And so the second day is very much focused on those issues. And after they have finished that group session, they would be able to come here to what we call the managerial expo. So it's different groups of employees from the House of Commons administration who are here to answer their questions on a variety of different topics to help them get started.
Michael Wagner is a political science professor at the U of A and author of the book Alberta, Separatism, Then and Now. Mr. Wagner says the sentiment of Alberta becoming its own country has been growing since the federal election. BCN's Hal Roberts asked him what it will take to quell the Alberta separatist movement.
If Trudeau was to make some concessions, I think there would be the separatist movement would dissipate to some degree because, as we talked about earlier, so many Albertans are actually dedicated Canadians. And if the federal government was being more favorable to Alberta, they would kind of drift away from the movement. So much of the future of the separatist movement is in the hands of the federal government.
Catch the full interview with author Michael Wagner discussing Alberta separation coming up in the second half of our show. An Edmonton man has dropped his human rights complaint against a single father who did not hire him to babysit. James Siranowski alleged that the father discriminated against him because of his gender and age. The Alberta Human Rights Commission had urged the man to drop the complaint earlier this month. A second complaint by Siranowski alleging a mother of 3 discriminated against him based on his family status remains active. A suicide crisis has been declared in the Shishashi First Nation in Central Labrador after 10 people attempted to take their own lives in the span of 1 week. Chief Eugene Hart says the community is in a state of grief after 14 natural deaths in the community over the last year, and without adequate supports in place, people are struggling. He says short-term programming will be set up at 3 centers to help community members, and he has reached out to the Premier's office, Labrador Affairs, the RCMP, Health Canada, Labrador Grenfell Health, and other organizations. About 1.5 million people in California have had their power cut in the 3rd scheduled blackout in as many weeks, with Pacific Gas and Electric saying it could last another 5 days. Officials with the state's largest utility say they understand repeated massive blackouts affecting millions of people are a hardship, but they insist that the outages are necessary to avoid sparking new wildfires. Residents say they've had to throw out thousands of dollars worth of spoiled food, are unable to run home businesses, and cannot operate home medical equipment. Meanwhile, slower winds are helping firefighters battle the wildfires there. Most recently, the fire around Los Angeles has destroyed at least 8 homes and forced thousands of people to flee.
The good news is that this fire has not grown at all. It remains at 618 acres estimated, with some initial containment, 5%. I remind folks, 5% containment means there's 5% of it that we are 100% confident will not grow. That doesn't mean the other 95% is out of control. It remains where it is, in place, with amazing muscle and work coming from our fire crews that are out there right now. So you should be prepared for 2 nights at least that the overwhelming majority of folks will be out of your homes.
Things continue to progress very well. We're making good progress. Tomorrow we expect to make even more progress. The winds are not expected to pick up until tomorrow evening.
What a situation happening there. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari is around 1 kilometer from some of the wildfires burning near Los Angeles, and she says poor air quality is even worse right now because of the fires.
If I look out the window right here, you can see the fires in the distance. You can see the gray smoke, but you can also see that there is a smokiness or, a smog, a thickness to the air quality. All the windows are closed. They've advised people who can work from home to work from home and not to go out, especially the elderly, the sick, those who cannot afford to breathe in that air.
Catch the entire interview with Lisa Daftari as she and Hal Roberts discuss wildfires and how a mastermind behind ISIS is no more. That's coming up in the second half of our program. Well, a mix of sun and cloud out there today with winds gusting to 60 kilometers per hour this afternoon. I will have complete weather details coming up for you after the break. Welcome back. Here's a look at your weather highlights for Lethbridge today. Lots of sunshine in the forecast and a high of 4 degrees, but watch out for those wind gusts. They could be up to 60 kilometers per hour by this afternoon. Tomorrow we have a chance of precipitation in the form of either flurries or rain, so watch for that tomorrow, and it'll be a high of 2 degrees. Looking ahead to the 5-day forecast, we have a high of 4 degrees on Friday. Lots of sunshine, finally back in the forecast there, but a mix of sun and cloud for Saturday with a high of 7 degrees. Lots of cloud coverage on Sunday with a high of 5 degrees, and the forecast looking like 1 degree on Monday and -1 on Tuesday with a mix of sun and cloud for those days. The average high this time of year is around 10 degrees. The average low, -3. But the top temperature on this day was in 1958. It was 24 degrees. And the lowest temperature was a chilly -25 in 2002. The sun rose this morning at 8:16 a.m. and will be setting this evening at 6:14 p.m. So just a little less than 10 hours of sunlight that we are experiencing these days. Looking to the national forecast on the west coast there, Vancouver and Victoria seeing 10 degrees today. Both cities will see lots of sunshine as well. Up in Edmonton, lots of cloud coverage though with a high of 6 degrees. Mix of sun and cloud in Calgary with a high of 6 degrees there as well. Over in the prairies, lots of sunshine in Saskatoon and Regina. Both cities will see highs of -4 degrees only. -2 in Winnipeg though, with a chance of flurries over there. Looking to the east, we're going to see some rain showers in Toronto with a high of 10 degrees. A mix of sun and cloud and a chance of showers in Ottawa with a high of 11 degrees. Showers also in Montreal today with a high of 13 degrees in that city. Looking over to Atlantic Canada, Fredericton will see some showers with a high of 14 degrees. Mix of sun and cloud in the forecast for Halifax with a high of 13. Sun and cloud in the skies for Charlottetown as well with a high of 14 degrees today. And St. John's, Newfoundland will be seeing showers with a high of 7 degrees. That's your forecast. Here's a look at what's happening in your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The United Way Coats for Kids and Families campaign continues until October 31st, accepting new and gently used winter wear for families in need in the community. Accepted items include new or gently used coats, mittens, scarves, snow pants, snow boots, and new hats and toques. Items can be dropped off at United Way and any Lethbridge TD Canada Trust or ATB financial branch. For more information, call 403-327-1700. Looking for a fun place where you and your kids can play? Come for a fun family night Thursday evenings from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. to the Family Center in downtown Lethbridge. Me and My Family promotes learning through play and provides a safe place for kids to explore through physical activity, imagination, and creativity. For more information, visit famcenter.ca. Begin your Christmas shopping by coming to the Signatures Fall into Christmas event November 1st to 3rd at Exhibition Park North Pavilion. Browse this unique handmade marketplace featuring works of over 100 artists, artisans, makers, and designers from coast to coast. Admission is $5. Those 17 and under can enter for free. For more information, visit fallintochristmas.com. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Are you nervous about a speech, presentation, or a first date? Well, today's daily life hack will give you a hand when you've got the butterflies in your stomach. Blow on your thumb. The vagus nerve, which connects to your thumb, controls your heart rate. Blowing on it will cause your heart rate to return to normal. The Voice of the Martyrs is calling on Christians around the world to pray for persecuted believers in North Korea as the International Day of Prayer for the Persecuted Church takes place on November 3rd.
Voice of the Martyrs is calling on Christians around the world to stand with persecuted believers in North Korea. As this year's International Day of Prayer for the Persecuted Church takes place on Sunday the 3rd of November, the charity has produced a video telling the true story of Pastor Han. Voice of the Martyrs Todd Nettleton explains how he paid the ultimate price for his evangelistic and discipleship ministry on the Korean-Chinese border.
Many of those North Koreans came to faith in Christ, and some of them even went back to North Korea to share that gospel message, to take it back to their friends and their family. Obviously, that's a very dangerous thing to do, but that discipleship work and that ministry work is what got Pastor Han noticed by the North Korean government. And in 2016, they sent an assassination team across the river into China. Pastor Han was brutally stabbed and killed. But this was a decision that he had made to lay down his life for the gospel. In fact, just a couple months before he was killed, he was with some of our team from VOM Korea, and they were talking about the danger to him. They were talking about the threats of kidnapping, maybe being taken back to North Korea and put in a labor camp. Pastor Han's attitude was, listen, I'm the shepherd and my sheep need me. And my sheep are along the China-North Korea border. And so he returned very willingly, knowing full well what the risks were, and he gave his life for the gospel of Christ and for the people of North Korea.
Nettleton highlights the scale of persecution taking place in the world's most restricted nation.
The idea that Jesus is Lord undermines the very veracity of the Kim regime. It undermines their theology of the deification of the leadership there. And so they cannot afford, as the regime, to allow Christianity to take root in their country. And that's why if you're found to be a Christian, it's not just you that gets sent to a labor camp. It is also your parents and your children. They believe that by arresting 3 generations, they can wipe out what they would call the stain of Christianity from their territory. That's the level of persecution that is happening in North Korea today.
Nettleton concluded by sharing how people should be praying at this time.
If we were the ones in North Korea, if we were the ones in those labor camps, how would we want people to pray for us? We'd want them to pray that God would sustain us, that God would protect us. We want them to pray that we have enough to eat today. We would also want them to pray for our families and our loved ones, and even to help in practical ways to provide for our families while we are in prison. So I think if we picture ourselves in North Korea, inside a labor camp, I think it's very easy to think of ways that we can pray for our Christian brothers and sisters who are in those labor camps today.
Peter Wooding for the Global News Alliance.
There has been more talk of Alberta separation since the federal election. Up next, Hal Roberts chats with Michael Wagner, author of the book Alberta Separatism, Then and Now, about where a lot of the sentiment is coming from. That's after the break, so stay with us.